Hi everyone. Last week, Law, Courts, and Politics, week 5 of a 5-week course. I suspect we're all getting a little worn out, but we still have some work to do. So let's get to it. This week, in lesson 5, we'll be looking at appeals courts. Often parties in cases choose to challenge the decision that's taken place in a trial court, and they can go to an appeals court, either in a state appeals court or into a federal appeals court. It depends, obviously, on the kinds of case that's been brought. In terms of looking at this, we have two general things we want to look at. Process, how is it that people go about appeals? Who does it advantage and disadvantage? And then finally, decision making. On what's the basis of decisions made in appeals courts. And again, I want to point out that we're looking both at state courts, and the image in this video here is the New York State Court of Appeals, our highest court, and also the federal court headed by the Supreme Court of the United States. In particular, we'll be looking at the Supreme Court of the United States. This is an image of the current court, the 9 members. They don't take photos very often, and the photographers don't get much time, so these aren't great photos, but we particularly want to look at the Supreme Court of the United States because the decisions that they have influence over courts and government and citizens from throughout the nation. One interesting point that I wanted to make very quickly about the Supreme Court is the number of cases that it decides has declined greatly since the 1980s. You see it decline through the 80s and 90s, and for the last really 2 decades or decade and a half, it's been much lower than it has ever in the modern history of the U.S. Supreme Court. It decides between 65 and 75 cases per year, and this despite the fact that the court has the opportunity to hear more cases than ever before. They get to choose from around 9,000 cases per year. So what are we going to be doing in terms of work this week? First of all, you'll take a quiz. This week's quiz has 18 multiple choice questions from chapters 9 and 10 and 1 short essay question. And for the last time, just a reminder that the short essay question is posted on the quiz. You can read it before you take the quiz. I strongly encourage you to write out an answer in advance and to copy and paste your answer into the box in Blackboard. We'll be discussing 2 questions related to the readings that we'll be looking at, and that's what's the basis of decisions by appeals courts? Law or politics or both? How should the Supreme Court and other appeals courts decide cases? The second discussion topic this week will go beyond appeals courts and try to look at major themes and lessons from the lessons throughout the semester. So what are our themes that we could look at for the semester as a whole? In terms of your writing assignment, you'll be listening to an oral argument before the U.S. Supreme Court. You may or may not have read yet, but the Supreme Court gives the 2 parties the opportunity to argue before it makes a decision. They give each side roughly a half an hour, and you'll listen to one of those oral arguments. You'll have the opportunity to listen to whatever one you want and to respond to it. So you'll need to write on that. And then finally, it's time to get to work in Slack. This is the last week, so make sure you pay attention to the final deadlines, especially if you are hoping to earn a B or an A. You need to get those assignments in addition to the assignments for lesson 5. As always, if you have any questions or comments, let me know in Slack, and I'll see you there. Bye.